What's going on, family? What's going on? What's going down? What's shaking? Welcome to Johnathan Soul Sundays. Sit back and relax. You know what I mean? Do the dishes, clean up the house, jog, whatever it is that you do on a Sunday that you can speak about in polite company. Whatever you do on a Sunday, go ahead and do it and let me play in the background. I'm going to bring you some groovy conversations, some interesting thoughts, usually from people who create the world they want to live in. You know, writers, artists, filmmakers, that type of vibration. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Johnathan Soul Sundays. Yeah, family, got a terrific interview for you today. Mr. C.Michael Forsyth. So who is he? He's a writer. He is a narrator. He's a proofreader. And he runs a site called freedomshammer.com. You go over to freedomshammer.com and check out the store. You'll see all his works over there. Tremendous amount of work. You can get hardcover, softcover, ebooks, and audio at freedomshammer.com. What are you going to find over here? You're going to find scary horror books, Hour of the Beast, right? You're going to find like fantasy, like this ancient African fantasy / romance under the title Blood of Titans. Then you're going to find this like a thriller kind of a thing under The Identity Thief. And then you're going to find like mystery under this title, The Adventure of the Spook House, where he talks about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes, and the magician Harry Houdini. He wrote a fantasy book about them two coming together solving the mystery. And then there's another, like a collection of like crazy tales in this book, Bizarre News. Now, I'm kind of a jive-like fan of H.P. Lovecraft. He was a prejudiced motherfucker, but the guy wrote some crazy, groovy stuff. And he used to publish in this crazy like publication back in the day. I'm just wondering if Bizarre News is kind of like that. So anyway, family, let's get into this interview with Mr. C.Michael Forsyth. Let's listen. Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
No, I've not. I think my mother was darn near close. I think she got, when she went for her law, a bar, went before the bar back in the 1950s. Boy, they asked her all those questions.
You know, it's funny, man. The other day, I was looking at Edward R. Murrow wartime reports. And this because I have that ear for the voice, the narration and everything. And so I think I would just tease because, you know, he was dealing with the McCarthy and all that kind of stuff. So I think one of the reasons why I keyed in to you is because you got that voice. You got that voice, man. You got that. Obviously, you got a very interesting accent, you know, just in your normal speaking voice. But when you narrate, I don't hear that. So guys and girls, cats and kittens, if you go to freedomhammer.com, you can see Michael's work. Not only does he have a ton of books out there, like I'm clicking on the store right now, I see Hour of the Beast. You can get the hardcover, softcover, ebook. You can get the audio. There's a poster. There's another one, Blood of Titans. There's another one, The Identity Thief. There's another one, which I'm really interested in, The Adventure of the Spook House, which you do a fictional tale about not Sherlock Holmes, which is what I would expect, but you do something with the author, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and Houdini, which is crazy. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of the Sherlock Holmes stories, and Harry Houdini, the famous escape artist, were actually friends in real life, and that just fascinated me.
Wow.
So in this story, they team up to solve a paranormal mystery. A respected judge vanishes in this derelict southern mansion, vanishes mysteriously. And so the two gentlemen go to investigate. They're called in to investigate and to determine whether something supernatural is at work. Was he murdered? And as they pursue this mystery, they themselves become endangered. So it's a bit of a thriller and a bit of a paranormal mystery involving these two characters who are each fascinating in their own right. I did quite a bit of research into them. Mm-hmm. And Houdini, he was essentially a superhero. I mean, he was as close to a superhero mm-hmm. as has really been a real person in America.
How do you figure? I thought he was just like a musician and he He had really great abs.
No, he did some amazing physical feats. I mean, some of the things he did were sort of just trickery, but some of it relied on him having trained his body to do some amazing things. Like he could pick up a pin from the ground with his toes and manipulate that pin, and just a powerful mind that could help him to solve problems, basically, that an ordinary person couldn't imagine how to do. And adventures all over the world. He was in Russia, England, just a life full of adventures. He was a trained pilot, which is something a lot of people don't know. He was about the 25th person to fly in the world.
Wow.
Yes, indeed.
Now you included Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, it's not often that people write about writers. Can you talk about why you chose him?
I chose him because I was fascinated by a single thing about Arthur Conan Doyle, which is that besides being the creator of this wonderful character who was so logical, so reasonable, he was a devout spiritualist. It was like a religion to him. And he was the spokesman, really, for the spiritualist movement, the greatest spokesman for it, and champion.
Can you quickly go into a little bit of the defining or describing spiritualism?
Basically, it's what we might call channeling now, where people felt that they could, through a medium, get in touch with the dead. And this was a really big thing in the late 1800s and early 1900s. People took it very seriously. And so this was the question about Arthur Conan Doyle. What made him tick that he could be so logical on one hand, and he was a physician, a man of science, and yet could have these sort of fantastical beliefs.
Now, what's crazy is his character, the character he's known for. He's wrote other books, but the Sherlock Holmes character would have poo-pooed spiritualism. So it's interesting that his creator was down with that. That's crazy.
Yes, there was a duality, and it gets addressed in the story. But what was interesting is when I first embarked on it, my idea was, well, Houdini would be the action guy, and Conan Doyle would be the intellectual guy. But I was surprised to find that Conan Doyle himself was a real man of action. He was great. He was a big guy, and he was great at a lot of different sports. He played about everything: rugby, boxing. He was an excellent boxer. He introduced skiing basically to England. It wasn't something that people did really. Even in Switzerland, people didn't really ski for fun. They did cross-country skiing. So he introduced that to people.
Wow.
So he was a man's man, a man of action himself, as well as a man of intellect. So the two of them put together, two very different kind of guys. It was a perfect kind of buddy story in a way.
It almost sounds like a Batman and Batman kind of story.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of, when they're together, there's a lot of testosterone. And initially they start off as good friends. Now, in reality, they became bitter enemies.
Wow.
Because what happened was
it over a girl? You can tell me. It was over a girl, wasn't it?
Well, not exactly. What it essentially is that, as I said, Conan Doyle was a devout spiritualist, and Houdini believed that the supernatural was possible, but he was very skeptical about it, and he was able to, in his investigations, unmask a lot of mediums as frauds.
Oh, okay.
And so at first, Conan Doyle was okay with this because, he felt that he was genuinely pursuing the truth, and maybe he'd be disappointed if a medium was unmasked that he had stirred Houdini to. But the time came that Houdini had become actively an opponent of the spiritualist movement, and so they were at total loggerheads. And now there was a woman involved, and that woman was Conan Doyle's wife, Lady Doyle, because she was a medium. And at a certain point, she used automatic writing. Are you familiar with what that is?
Is that when the spirit kind of inspires you to write stuff down and you're not looking at it or whatever?
That's right. Your pencil is just flying, and then you look at it, oh my God, the spirit did it. So she was an accomplished, if you would, automatic writing spiritualist. Anyway, she did a reading for Houdini in which she channeled his own dead mother, who he felt very strongly about. Mm-hmm. And wrote this 15-page wonderful letter about, I'm here in the other world, and I miss you, my beloved boy, and all of this stuff. Very touching. And just a few months later, Houdini kind of kept it to himself, but then he just went after her publicly, saying this was fake. Mm-hmm. And this was all fake. And the reason he knew it was fake for two very good reasons. Number one was that it was all in English, and his mother didn't speak a word of English. She was a Hungarian immigrant.
Wow.
The other thing was on top of each page of the letter was a cross, carefully written, and his mother was a devout Jew.
Wow.
So he called BS, and Conan Doyle wasn't having it, because now it's one thing you're attacking the movement. Now you're attacking my wife. So that's in reality what caused the breakup. But in the novel, it takes place in a sweet spot when they are friends, mm-hmm. and where that seance, as it were, has taken place, but they haven't argued about it yet. And so in the novel, the argument takes place, and at the worst possible time. Mm-hmm. So it was a great researching these guys and researching times. And I tell you, I never had this experience before, but by the time I was done researching these guys, I knew these characters better than characters I actually made up out of my head.
Wow.
I really did.
Wow.
So I knew exactly what they would say under situations and what I couldn't make them say because they wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, you mentioned the supernatural. This book is catching a lot of press, and one of the people who gave an endorsement is Dracula's great-grandnephew, which is, now, correct me if I get his name wrong, is Darkrai Stoker?
I think it's pronounced Dacre. Dacre Stoker. Yes, he's the great-grandnephew, obviously not of Dracula, but of Dracula's creator, Bram Stoker. And he's a wonderful guy. He lives in Aiken, South Carolina, and he has all the manners of a Southern gentleman.
Wow.
And I think I actually, in referring to some people, referred to him as a Southern gentleman. And then he mentioned, I'm actually Canadian, but he just has those manners. I guess Canadians are equally gentlemanly, but a great guy, and he did a lot of research himself into the Stoker family, and he goes around. He actually does lectures about. He has a great presentation about Stoker and how he created the book, and things that are wonderful little known things. And so we got to know each other. We actually ended up later sharing a booth at at one of the writing conventions. And so he's a really good guy.
But he endorsed your book, though. That's why I
yes,
brought him up.
He did. Yeah, that was really a great of him. And he wrote a book. It was called Dracula the Undead. And it's sort of a sequel to Dracula, and it's none of them are really nothing's more authorized than the other. It's hard to say what really happened next, but it kind of has a little bit of credibility, as it were, because it's an actual Stoker relative writing it. But it was a very strange and dark story, but it was almost basically as if we see the world as Dracula sees himself. He's like a sort of a Byronic, heroic figure. And the guys that battled him were kind of losers. They were a bunch of losers. Even Van Helsing, and so it becomes sort of his love affair with Mina. So it's an interesting take on it.
It's crazy that the Van Helsing character was so minor that, from my recollection, throughout the movies and stuff, and then later on it became more, a character worthy of movies and anime and things like that. the Van Helsing character.
Yeah, somehow I think you needed a really strong opponent to Dracula. In the book, of course, I suppose the ostensible hero is Jonathan Harker,
Right.
who is kind of just like this everyman. But certainly in the movies, I think it was great to have Christopher Lee, who was this virile, powerful, magnetic, charismatic guy, opposed by Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, he's kind of like the Van Helsing we picture. You know, he has the powerful, almost he has like a Sherlock Holmes like intellect, you know, and especially when played by a British actor. But he can do the action stuff too, you know, and quick on his feet. I don't know if you remember that. It was probably one of the greatest cool moves in all of horror. I don't know if you remember that. He's battling Dracula, and he's almost being overcome, and he picks up two candlesticks and puts them into the form of a cross and vanishes. And oh my God, yes, Van Helsing, I love him.
Now those two cats you just mentioned, Peter Cushing and oh goodness, Christopher
Lee, yes,
Christopher Lee. Those guys have great voices. Not only are they good actors, but they have very powerful voice. And I got to say, as a guy with a terrific voice, you got a great voice, brother. So
thank you.
Let's talk about the narration services that you offer. All of your books have the audio book component, which is terrific because I'm a slow ass reader, and it's nice just to have the person talk to me. You also offer these services to other authors. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I found that there's a big market for audiobooks, and I just find that I can, even though I have a pretty short commute, maybe 20 minutes or so, I find I can get a lot more read listening to it than I can and reading it. Like at the end of the day when I put the kids to bed and, I have about 5 minutes more of consciousness before I'm asleep. And so when I realized there was this market, I started to put each of my books on audio tape, and it is challenging work because you have to act each character. If you really want to bring it to life, you're really dramatizing it. But I found it a very rewarding experience. Number one, I love hearing myself speak. Right. But I got to tell you, I read to my children perhaps from the age of 18 months to when they were maybe 12.
Wow.
And they would insist that I do the different character voices. And I just found it a wonderful experience. So getting to do that for my own work, I kind of enjoyed. And so that's when I decided to let me try and do it for some other writers. And have had a couple of good experiences with that.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Now, you mentioned the accents. When I was listening to the clip of the Adventures of the Spook House, you got the, I guess was it the Scottish or Irish accent down pretty good? It's like, where do you get that from? You just listen to people and try to copy them? I mean, how do you develop your accents?
Well, it's very simple. I really didn't go out for a full-on Scottish accent, which I think might have been distracting. But Conan Doyle, as I said, he was a man's man, a very manly guy, and very self-confident. And I thought the perfect voice for that, if I was going to hire a writer, someone to do it as opposed to do it myself, Sean Connery.
Okay.
And if in his younger days, he would have been the perfect person to play the part.
Right.
And I fortunately have been a big fan of the James Bond movies for years, and occasionally when I have the opportunity to do my Sean Connery imitation. In fact, if you go to YouTube, I did a whole Sean Connery routine.
Wow.
But yes, so Goldfinger, I suppose you expect me to talk. So just kind of, I just did the whole thing sort of with that persona, and I think it really worked well. And the interesting thing about Sean Connery's accent, why it's so distinctive, is that in the James Bond movies, he was trying to speak in a standard British accent, but it was difficult for him. His normal thing at that time was a very heavy brogue. And in fact, I've heard that they more or less had to record his dialogue one line at a time. So he's trying not to speak in a Scottish accent. When you and I do it, we're trying to talk Scottish. He's trying to speak like a proper English gentleman. And it created this marvelous, unique voice.
Uh-huh.
And, and he's just stuck with that for every role. I mean, he's playing Russian, he's playing Irish, he doesn't care. He does that beautiful voice that we all love.
Uh-huh. Now, this is a crazy, an aside or off the beat. But what do you think when they was talking about having Idris Elba play Bond? Give me your take on that.
I love it 100%.
Really?
Have you seen the TV show Luther?
Dude, I got every freaking season. That show is awesome. Awesome.
Well, okay. If you see Luther, you have no question that this man, besides having the good looks and sexual magnetism that you need for that role, and that not many actors have. Remember, it's when they look for James Bond, it's always like a small group of guys, and they keep going back to ask for the guys. Like, Roger Moore, you're not available now. 5 years later, they ask for him again. Very few people have the quality. But if you see Luther, you see, number one, well, there's no question he's British. He's British, he's black, but he's unquestionably British.
Right.
You certainly feel that he has the acting stuff too.
Of course.
As good as any of them.
Yep.
Better, I would say.
Better, yeah.
And he could bring, to the drama part of it. And because now Bond is being, the current thing with Bond is a pretty serious, dramatic character.
Right. It's not like the comedic thing they did with Roger Moore back in the day.
And you certainly feel that just as Sean Connery went from, talking a Scottish brogue and being a kind of you see, when we see Sean Connery, we thought he was playing himself, right? But he wasn't. He was a rugged, rough guy who learned to play act sort of like a gentleman. So I have no question that Idris Elba could, transform himself into that gentleman, and he can do the proper voice, because you certainly see that when you've seen him do the American roles, like in The Wire, you had no idea that his normal voice was a Cockney. Yep. So he could do any voice you want. He would be superb. And I think the rate limiting factor for him is this, and why he probably will not be cast. It's not that the studio fears that he could not be convincing in the role. And I really hate to say this, but I think the rate limiting factor is, can your average white, young, or just say male viewer, white male American viewer, identify with him? As in that role, in that, I hate to say it. I hate to say this, but okay, when the black guy kicks everybody's ass and gets the white woman and or gets the girl, whatever, if you're a white guy, I hate to say this, but because I think a lot of white guys don't think this way, but some may feel, fuck, I can't identify. In fact, I want to beat the hell out of that guy. It rattles me, rankles me, and I'd like to believe.
Now, let me ask you this. Let me cut in. How do you? Let's just say, in our Magic situation, he played the role. How do you think that would play in Europe? How do you think that would play overseas? You think it would work as far as the audience?
I don't know. I mean, the standard line was that, Europeans are not nearly as prejudiced as Americans. They go to France and you'll be fine. But, as we see with some of these immigrants, now that they have dark-skinned people there, but I cannot remark intelligently on that, because I really don't know. The question is, and I think, movies are made mostly for American audience. How would American audience do it? But I think if they gave him a chance, and people even just saw, if they just shot the trailer, they would go for it. They would get it. And, I think, the problem for some Americans, they don't consider themselves prejudiced. But their feeling of why, Bond just isn't black.
I think you hit on the key point. They don't know that they're prejudiced. Just like people don't know that they're poor in America. They don't know. And when you bring it to their attention, they're pissed off at you.
And, the thing about it is, you see, to me, I can say, well, look, okay, but Bond wasn't written as black, but, you put a black guy in the part. Everything is the same. And, he's just treated by the same. The villain still hates him. Everything is the same. But to their mind, well, no, if he were black, everything would be different. And maybe, oh shoot, maybe, maybe they have something. It's hard to say, but I have some second choices. I'm always wrong because, I wanted Clive Owen, who seemed pretty obvious since out of character.
Oh yeah, Clive from,
he looks like James Bond, right?
Well, he seems more around the way type. He don't seem refined. Clive Owen seemed like, cause I remember Clive Owen from one of my favorite movies of all time, which is, what's the name of it? Where it was like the sport kind of thing. He helped a little baby. Okay. Children of Men is my favorite, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the comic book thing that he was in, what was it?
Sin City. Yes.
Sin City. So that's why, so you see him as Bond? That's interesting.
Oh, most definitely. I think he would be superb, and he'd been superb. I mean, what happens is guys start to age out of the role,
right.
But he would have been great. But another of my picks, and this is kind of, I don't think I heard anyone else mention him, was Adrian Paul, I believe is his name, from Highlander.
From the 90s back in the day?
Yes. I mean, he would have been perfect. I mean, in terms of, like the Sean Connery look and the masculinity and everything. But I'm always wrong. Whoever I pick always does not get it. So, and if I said they would be good, trust me, they're not going to get it.
That's cool. So let's get back to some of your stuff. Thanks audience for bearing with us for that little nerdy little tangent thing there. So you offer narration services. I noticed that you also offer editing services.
Yeah. My day job for a long time was being on the rewrite desk of the National Enquirer. Mm-hmm. That was my job, day in, day out for 4 years, taking the text that writers made, making it better, making it cleaner, making it readable. And, it was kind of weird that I had the job because I have a degree in English from Yale.
Wow.
So for some people, it seemed like, what a step down to be for the National Enquirer. And in fact, my mother, I was there for about 4 months, and she said, so Michael, how do you find working for the National Review? Mom, I don't work for the National Review. I work for the National Enquirer. She said, the National, and then a couple of weeks later, it's like, Michael, I've been talking to people at this National Enquirer, and some people say it doesn't have the best reputation. And I'm like, well, I don't know who you were talking to, but they're completely wrong. It's a respectable publication. But anyway, so I did a lot of rewrite work for people, and so it's just in my skill set to editing and proofreading, and I like reading other people's work and treating it analytically. In my own work as a writer, I've often been a member of writers groups.
Okay.
And I found that just so helpful to look at other people's work and see how, you could make it be perfect, except what if you did this? And, so I found it helped my work, but I also enjoy that experience of, taking somebody else's work to another level.
Now, you mentioned National Enquirer, which kind of ties into this other book that you have I wanted to talk about. Y'all can find it on Amazon. If you go to, just look up C. Forsyth. Am I saying your last name right?
Forsyth is how
Forsyth. Okay, Forsyth. And I see a book called Bizarre News. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I after working for the National Enquirer, I moved up in the world to another publication called the Weekly World News, which was a crazy black and white paper that had even more outlandish headlines like Bat Boy escapes and space alien endorses Clinton. And these were stories that were just made up out of whole cloth, fun, wild stories. And so after the paper shut down, I stopped doing it, but I kind of missed it. So I started a blog, and I just started doing crazy stories on them. So a lot of them have supernatural elements, like psychiatrist helps vampires overcome their fear of crucifixes, or bookshelf built by Jesus found. So crazy, fun, stories. And so after a while, I realized, oh boy, I've collected about 100 of them. And so I've decided to take the best of them and put them together into a book called Bizarre News. And they have great pictures in them. And a lot of them are just fun stories that are written to be very believable, which is how we wrote the National in the Weekly World News. The idea was to write the stories so that you give the audience an opportunity to believe them. So no matter how outlandish the premise was, you'd find supporting facts that would make it seemingly believable. So one that I did that got an amazing amount of attention was that I did one anthropologist held hostage by elves for 7 years.
Wow.
So you would think on the face of it, you're announcing the story can't be true. Right. But the story was set in Iceland, where there is a long-standing, widespread belief in elves. It's to the point where you can't build a development on a certain site if it was believed to have been an elf dwelling underground.
Wow.
So I found a great picture of a woman nude. You couldn't see anything of the vital bits on the edge of a mountain cliff, seemingly being rescued by a guy from a helicopter. And the idea was that this woman came crawling out of this opening in the cave after 7 years with this wild, and she's totally lost her mind. But she was an anthropologist who went to Iceland 7 years earlier to research elves. So anyway, it still sounds totally outlandish, but it was written believable enough that it got about 1 million hits.
Wow.
On the site, which was far more than any other. And it was wildly popular in Iceland. And what I didn't realize when I set the story there was Iceland is so small. Iceland is so small that some people protested, wait, there's nobody by that name here. It's like, wait a minute, you know everybody in Iceland, but it's that small. But what's so funny, if you should go to that, look for that.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the little preview on Amazon right now.
Yeah, if you go to forsythstories.com and you look for the actually, if you just Google my name and elves anthropologist, you'll get it eventually. But anyway, you'll find the comments are so crazy because they'll talk about the name of the researcher. Is this an Icelandic name? And so it says, no, the mother's name goes in Iceland, and then the author said she's Danish, and then there were like 200 comments, and no one addresses the idea. Wait a minute, there are no elves. So it was some great, wild, fun stories like that. And, it's so funny because now this thing of fake, when I started it, I was like the only one doing it, like it was The Onion.
Right.
and now satire spread out, and now it's sort of morphed into fake news where some right-wing site will make something up, and when you catch them, they say, it was satire. But it's not funny. It's not ironic. It's just not true.
Exactly.
So it's kind of changed, and what happened is as I continued, I started to do almost exclusively supernatural stories because I didn't want to be in that thing of, I'm trying to kind of get one over on you. I'm trying to be fun. So I principally it was stories that were supernatural, but even those, I'd write stories about vampires, but there are a lot of people who not only believe in vampires, they believe they are vampires.
Wow.
So they'd be contacting me. Wait a minute. You said that these, scientists had a vial of Vlad the Impaler's blood and were planning to drink it. Where can I get some of that blood?
Wow. That's crazy. I'm reading through the comments of the Iceland story, and people are really getting into this.
Yes.
This is crazy. Well, there may be some maybe like the original inhabitants might have been pygmies or something. I'm sure that had some root in truth someplace.
Well, you're way ahead of me, and that was exactly the angle I took. Some years ago on an island out in Indonesia, they found what's called the Hobbit. Are you familiar with that?
No.
They found a creature, basically a human relative, just as the Neanderthal is a relative that was diminutive. I mean, maybe 3 feet tall, that lived on this island as recently as 12,000 years ago.
Wow.
So that's almost into recorded history now. And in fact, the people who live on the islands have a legend of monkey-like people. And the island was hit by a terrible, volcanic eruption that's believed to have wiped these people out. But had that not happened, these people could have lived almost to the present day. So the idea is that there were such little people in Iceland, and that was the origin of the myth. And is it any wonder, one of the scientists said, that when the Vikings arrived, these people just took refuge underground? I mean, if you're three feet tall and they're Vikings, wouldn't you go underground?
Of course, you think these are giants invading your land there. So let me push forward a little bit here. That was really cool. I think most of my audience are creators, nerds, writers, filmmakers, and so you're probably giving people a ton of ideas right now. Mostly I interview comic book artists, right? They write, create, publish their own comic books, and I'm looking in the upcoming link on your site, freedomshammer.com, and it says, let's see, I'm proud of my first graphic novel, Night Cage. The premise is simple: vampires take over a woman's prison. Imagine Orange is the New Black meets Salem's Lot. Now, I mentioned Salem's Lot on the Afro. I think it was Afro Nerd. They had no idea what I was talking about. It's beautiful to meet somebody your own age.
Yeah, I may be dating myself. Thanks for telling me that. I think I have to make it 30 Days of Night.
There you go. My kids know 30 Days of Night. But talk about this novel a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't make it. My original thing was going to be Salem's Lot meets Caged Heat, so I'm glad I didn't go all the way back to the 70s. Yep. Well, that's the premise. Basically, a graphic novel that combines the claustrophobic environment of an underground prison, where already, even before anything supernatural happens, it's a terrible place to be, because there are showroom cat fights, there are racial strife, there's sadistic matrons, and into that, a newly turned vampire, very mysterious, sexually attractive woman is brought into the prison, and one by one she starts to convert some of these women. And our heroine is this, she's kind of like a I hate using this term. She's a young white lady from the wrong side of the tracks who might possibly have lived in a trailer at some point. She's really our heroine, and she gets thrown down in solitary confinement after a confrontation with this vampire woman, as does our black woman who's kind of tough, kind of like like Michonne in Walking Dead. She's kind of a tougher character.
Gotcha.
And then there's this funny girl. She's kind of like this Irishy girl. She's kind of a throwback to the old bubblegum popping poor Irish types. Okay. Anyway, so those girls are in solitary confinement at the very bottom of the prison when the vampire plague has spread throughout this prison, so that every guard, every prisoner has been converted.
Wow.
And now these girls have to bust out of solitary and then work their way up level by level, battling their way through this bloodthirsty army of vampires who, even before they became vampires, were already dangerous because they were axe murderers, drug dealers, and psychopaths. So it's almost, in a way, it's to make a reference to another movie, it's a little bit like the Poseidon Adventure. Again, I may be dating myself, but that's a movie where a ship's overturned. The people have to work their way up to the bottom of the ship. So they have to fight their way level through level until they escape. So there's a lot of, some people might take the idea of a story about women in skimpy underwear fighting vampires.
It sounds like a love story.
They might think it's a love story, or they might think it's sort of exploitative, and but I consider it sex and violence, so know, we all love that. And
you can't go wrong with that.
But it was fun to write because, okay, for those of you who shamefully are not aware of the story Salem's Lot, this was an early book by Stephen King, and I would say still I think the best, in my view, in terms of pure horror. It was better than better than The Stand, in my view. And basically, in Salem's Lot, a small New England town is taken over by vampires, and nothing like that had really been done before at that time. Yeah. And to me, it was just the best vampire book since Dracula. And so I love that book, and I like going back to old school vampires. You know, the current vampires, they're like the perfect boyfriend.
Right.
You know, they're soft, they have their own culture. No, I wanted old school, hardcore vampires. You know, their main interest is, you know, either sucking you dry and killing you, or converting you to one of them. Their army of darkness. Now, they may seduce you too. You know, there's an upside, but you know, pretty dark.
What did you think about the movie with David Soul, the Salem's Lot movie?
It was a little disappointing to me. I didn't enjoy it too much. I didn't see the remake. I didn't really like it that much. I think maybe it's because I love the book so much, and you know, you're seeing the book in your head. So that's a case where my imagination scared me more than what Hollywood was able to do. And I think there might have been a couple of scenes that were in the book that were just so horrifying that I'm not sure were in the movie.
Yeah, when that ball of black cloth bust through the window, and I think it was like a basement area, and then that cloth kind of stood up, and then it was a vampire. I think I was 15 years old or something around that time. That scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, I think that the things that are like, you know, when you're like 8 and you see something on Chiller Theater, you know, anything's going to scare you. But I think the things that I find remarkable, the ones that scare you when you're close to an adult, and there aren't very many. For me, I'd say Nightmare on Elm Street was one of the few movies that, I was an adult and this is scaring me, and then it's time to go to bed and I'm not sure I want to, you know. And it's kind of funny because my daughter, I have a pair of identical twins.
Wow.
And it's very interesting because how they are different. And this is one of the most unusual differences. One of them, I kid you not, has had nightmares almost every night since she was 3 years old.
Oh, poor baby. Sorry to hear that.
But and she just got used to them. She just thinks, well, that's what happens when you go to sleep. And, but she has no interest in horror movies, doesn't like them, doesn't want to see them. The other girl has never had a nightmare, ever. She's 14, has never had a nightmare, but she loves horror movies. Crazy. So I think somehow whatever that experience is, or you're working through some issues, they're doing it, and their brains are doing it different ways. But anyway, the horror one, it's like one of our bonding things now is to watch horror movies, and so we've just started to. And I think I postponed it for a while because I think Nightmare on Elm Street is kind of an ugly. Yeah. It has an ugliness to it. But one of the things, besides loving horror, she loves Johnny Depp. She's seen all of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. She thinks he's the greatest. So to see this movie where he's like a teenager, you know, her age almost, wow, he's so cool. So we may do that this Christmas movie. Now, I was going to wait till next Halloween, but maybe a Christmas movie.
Now, I do got to say one thing about the horror movies and the kids. Now, I showed my son, who's, you know, now he's in his 20s, early 20s. I showed him The Exorcist. Now, The Exorcist scared me for years. I was at elementary school or whatever. It wasn't kidding. I was in elementary school. And he laughed at it, and that made me mad. I was like, what are you laughing? This scared the blank out of me, man. He was just laughing. You know what I mean? And I remember reading the history of when it first came out in the theater, people were actually fainting. They had to be carried out of the theater. So is it just a they're just desensitized, or what's going on with this?
Well, let me ask you, what has been his movie experiences up to seeing that? Has he seen a lot of horror movies?
You mentioned 30 Days a Night. That was like our family movie. We turn off all the lights. Everybody get up in the couch, cover it with covers, and we watch 30 Days a Night. Now, when that first came out, they were still, I think, in middle school, high school. So that scared them shitless. But I was there, but that was like our family movie. Now,
okay.
go ahead.
He's been exposed, is what you're saying. prior to seeing The Exorcist.
Yeah, yeah. So that really pissed me off. And then we watched the other movies, and they all laugh, and then, oh, that's corny. And I was like, man.
Yeah, the special effects in terms of blood and guts are so superior now.
Yeah.
But I think the ones that depend more on creepiness and psychological horror, I think may be more effective. And I think, The Exorcist, there's sort of a religious component. I know what the story is in your family, but I have a female friend who she says she loves horror stories, whatever, but she will not deal with anything that has possession in it. Because that could happen. I'm like, really, that could happen? Vampires can happen. But I guess, from a religious standpoint, demon possession is in the Bible. Yeah. So if you have a certain religious perspective, that's has funny credibility.
That's funny about the religious part, because I have some people in my family who are extremely religious, right? And they love the Walking Dead TV show, but they refuse to call them zombies. They call them, they're just walkers. I said, no, they're zombies. But if they admit to themselves that they're zombies, somehow that's some negative spiritual connotation. It's so weird.
That is weird. See, I've never understood in the show. I find it's the most annoying things. No, they've encountered like 7 different groups. They're the bobbers, they're the roamers. No one calls them zombies. Right. And I don't know whether we're to, I guess it seems silly if they call them zombies, or is the idea, do we take the premise that the movie Night of the Living Dead never occurred in their universe, and so they wouldn't call them zombies, therefore. I don't know. But I find it weird. But that's interesting. Yeah. Zombies, it's all fun and games, unless, you see, this show presents it as a sort of a disease process. Right. A disease that really doesn't make much sense. But, I think the Catholic Church's interpretation, which is their interpretation of vampires as well, is that if there's a body that is, for some reason, is not decayed, and then a demon takes possession of that body. And that is the Catholic Church's medieval explanation for vampires, and I'm pretty sure it'd be their explanation for zombies too. So if you told their relatives that, they'd take Walking Dead a little bit more. No, we ain't gonna watch that.
Right. I don't want to spoil it for them.
I don't want to truck with them.
I don't want to spoil it for them. Now, I'm seeing on your page it says this vampire women's prison thing is upcoming. So when will it be available?
It will be this year. Even as we speak, the artist is illustrating the first 80 pages of the story. And I had an artist who's already done the cover, and the cover is fantastic. There's a sort of black and white mock-up that you probably see on that page.
I'm looking at it, and the art is terrific. It has a nice classic, not a retro like 80s, 90s, but it has a nice look to it. It's perfect with the tone of the story. Perfect.
Yes. And I'm going to use that, but there's also a cover that will actually be the cover of the graphic novel, and it not blows out of the water. It's just fantastic. So I am looking forward to it. I think it's one of the best things I've done, simply because in terms of the story moves along. I think people are going to like it. My hope is that some wise producer will look at it and say, well, geez, this is practically, it moves so good. It's a storyboard for a movie. This would be a great low-budget movie.
Yep, I can see it. I mean, my interpretation will be Charlie's Angels meets 30 Days and Nights.
Oh, well, you're dating yourself again. I was thinking of some current show, but I thought of that. Yeah, there was the Charlie's Angels episode where they went behind bars. That's right. I remember.
Yeah. So what do we got, family? We got some terrific horror, some thrillers in here, ebooks, audiobooks that you can find at freedomshammer.com. You can also find them at amazon.com. We got the audiobooks that you can find. You can find them in the Kindle store. You can find them. Are your audiobooks on Audible?
Yes, they're available on Audible, and it's a fun, different way to experience the books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed that you also have a profile on ACX, which is I guess is that Audible's like a board for narrator talent? Is that
exactly? Yeah. ACX, for people who don't know, is Amazon's audiobook wing, and so. As a narrator, every narrator / producer, because the narrator basically narrates the book and edits it, delivers a finished product. So everyone has a page. So I have a page on ACX. You can find it there. Or you could go to freedomshammer.com and link to it there. But it has a sample of my reading different types of books. And I have a fun segment where I do different celebrity voices, just a bunch of them. There's Jack Nicholson and William Shatner, and just go through them because I want to demonstrate that I can do a bunch of different types of characters, and I can alter my voice as necessary, whether you need a British accent or an Irish one, or you need someone talking in a long Southern accent, whatever. It can deliver.
What about William Shatner?
I tried over the years to work on a perfect Shatner accent. Yeah, well, you know what's very easy?
That's cool.
When people are your boyhood heroes and you do a lot of make-believe, you spend a lot of time with developing that, yeah.
That's really cool. Now, speaking of voices and characters, I don't know, are you into anime or cartoons at all? This might be a stretch.
Yeah, I'm not really into anime, but my son wants to be an animator. He's an excellent artist.
Terrific.
He does a lot of wonderful claymation, and he has an encyclopedic knowledge of Disney movies. I mean, he could completely reenact any Disney movie.
Wow.
And then he's exposed me to some of the Cartoon Network things that I would otherwise not have seen, like Family Guy, stuff like that. Things that, you know, all these shows, they look real stupid when you care 10 seconds of them,
right.
And then you sit and watch it, what he forced me to do, and I realize how brilliant, some of them are.
The reason why I bring it up is because there needs to be more African American folks delving into the voice talent, delving into the narration thing. I mean, There's some incredible voice talent out there. I mean, I know you watched the Boondocks a little bit, right, back in the day? And we know that Regina King, the actress, gorgeous lady, she was in Enemy of State. I think she played Will Smith's wife, and she's in some 227. I think she was a kid. And she did the boys' voice, Riley and Huey.
I did not know that.
Yeah, she did both their voices. And so, when I look at different, I'm in anime pretty strong and everything, and I just like, man, this is a Spanish character. She has brown skin, but they got a white girl voicing her. You know what I mean? As more of us start to convert our written work into graphic novels like what you're doing, and eventually them graphic novels are going to become anime, it'll be great if we could kind of tap into some of that voice talent that we have in our community. I think that's important.
You're most certainly right. I mean, you meet some people, and they may not even necessarily be actors. I'm just thinking about people who have these wonderful voices, especially down here in South Carolina. These deep voices that are men that are so rich, and it's some of them that just, I have a relative, he's an 80-year-old retired school teacher. In fact, we're going to visit him tomorrow, but he actually was part of a singing group when he was younger. They performed at the Apollo and stuff. But he just has this deep, rich Paul Robeson type bass voice. Yeah. And I'm like, it's almost a shame that this guy's voice has not done some Brer Rabbit or African American folk tales or something.
I mean, some of us speak in fonts. You know what I mean? Some of us speak in fonts, and it would be beautiful to capture some. That's a whole area of talent that, in my opinion, has yet to be tapped.
Yes.
Not only with the anime, but like what you're doing with the book narration. I mean, I think that has to be tapped. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is this book you have called Blood of Titan. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yes. I'm so glad that we got a chance to talk about that. Yes. The Blood of Titans is a story of love and adventure that takes place in ancient Africa in a mythical kingdom, but thousands of years ago, back in the days when we were kings and queens. And it's the story of a princess named Halima of an advanced civilization. And she falls in love with a warrior king, this magnificent mountain of a man. If you see the cover, you'll see what I mean. And the trouble is, number one, their kingdoms are at war. And number two, it's a time of polygamy. So he actually has a first wife already. So this passionate love triangle develops between the three of them against the backdrop of a clash of civilizations. So it tells her story, which goes through this basically an epic journey, both physically as she goes from one kingdom to another, but she also comes of age because she's very young when it starts. She's just 15 years old. Yeah,
I read a little bit of it, and when her father was talking about, marrying her off, to this tribe or this nation so they can form an alliance, she wasn't really happy at first. She just she was content to stay home with Pops. But then he kind of impressed upon her responsibilities and so forth. So it's a lot of layers to that story.
Yes, it is. And, it's funny, you set upon to write something, and I started very simply. What it was the girl I was dating at the time. She was very brilliant. She was a doctor, but for entertainment, all she read was romance novels. And, but obviously, they would historical romances. They'd always have a pirate carrying some red-haired woman or a knight carrying some blonde, and there was no one who looked like her on the cover. So I wrote this story. I began it for her. And as I started to get into it more, the depth occurred to me. But the two of the challenges were, one, the idea that people married very young in those societies, might be 13. And I started to think of, well, boy, that's sort of an obstacle. But it was an obstacle or an opportunity, because you start with someone who essentially has the mind of a child. And that mind develops over the course of the story. She matures and starts to understand what love really is, from a girlish sense of what love is to a woman's sense. And the other, I think, was, well, wait a minute. There's polygamy in those days. And it's like, well, that kind of would ruin the story, but does it ruin it? Or does it give you the opportunity for a triangle? And the idea, most of all, that, we think of that in those societies, they didn't really have the idea of romantic love as we understand. No, you're just a certain age, you go marry, so and blah, blah, blah. But what if romantic love reared its ugly head in a society like that, where it was not the norm? And it becomes almost potentially a destructive force. So those kind of ideas help make it a kind of a unique story that's gotten some good reviews and attention. And, what's interesting, too, is when I start to kind of Google around, I saw there's not been a lot of historical romance novels involving black people at all. Very few. I saw
unless it's like a slavery kind of thing, or Oz is watching God type stuff. You know what I mean? But this is in a different vibe. This
is different in terms of traditional romance, right? The only one that I saw that came up on the book of books people also buy, yes, is this woman who had a white slave master, almost like a Gone with the Wind thing with the slave mistress. It's like, whoa, no, wait, I do not want my books necessarily. I'm sure it's good, but I don't know if I want mine on the same page. But I was wondering about that, because there's so many wonderful settings. You could have the Old West or what have you. But I think that there's this terrible feeling that our people have that, number one, in terms of Africa, that, Africa, nothing too good about it. That's the place that the civil wars, whatever. We're like, well, thank you, Mr. Charlie, for taking us away from there. Right. Basically, it's the attitude. And fundamentally, that our history is sort of a tragic and shameful one. And you say a historical and you've lost some women already. No. If I want a love story, set in the present, so it's a bit of an uphill. It's been a bit of an uphill battle marketing it from that, what I thought would be the obvious thing in the market of black women who want, like a romance novel, whatever. And the bigger market, the more receptive audience I've really found are sort of the speculative fiction. Well, so I consider it more of a historical novel than a fantasy novel.
Okay.
Yet it has those aspects because it's in a mythical kingdom. And it has a lot of adventure because, I wrote it for my girlfriend, but listen, I can't write something too long before, okay, there's got to be a sword fight, somebody's body's flying. Right. So it has a lot of adventure for it. So people who like adventure stories and other worlds will like it. But it's kind of funny because I sell the book depending on who I'm talking to. So if I'm at a book fair, and a woman comes along, a black woman comes along, I say, it's a romance novel, it's a love story. Now, a white person comes on, I say, yes, it's a book set in an advanced African civilization. They say, so it's like it's a fantasy novel?
Wow.
It's a fantasy novel, and, it's really great. Oh, good, I'll buy it. And look, I love them. Hey,
right.
Look,
Long
you
as
like
got a book.
you like this, that I have no problem with it.
Maybe you're pioneering a niche. Maybe that's what's happening.
Well, so I'm hoping so. And I'm hoping that through some of the things, like I did the audio book for that, which was, a great experience doing that. And, having to do like a female voice and stuff. It was an interesting experience. But, some of the people, I don't know, do you know Milton Davis?
Milton Davis, no.
Oh, he's got to be next on your next on your list to interview.
Okay.
A great guy who's really been pushing forward the black speculative movement and pushing the work of others, doing a lot of stuff. And he's working himself on a graphic novel based on, he's done some kind of they call it sword and sorcery stories set in Africa. He's doing a graphic novel based on one of those, and they're working on an animated film.
Wow.
So definitely
Milton Davis.
Milton Davis. Oh, you have definitely got to connect with his brother. You'd find him very interesting, and he's very positive. And I like is he's always looking for the new venue, the new, shoot. No one was talking about this until just now, but now that they're talking about it, maybe we should do a collection of these stories like this. And I just love that way of thinking.
Yeah, I've been finding that my little podcast is starting to get some buzz, and it seems to be with a lot of creators. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, maybe some anthologies would be great to, kind of collect these kind of things and let folk know that stuff is existing. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a big part of it is that people people don't necessarily think that they would like this stuff. Like there are a lot of, say, black readers who don't necessarily think that they don't read science fiction, say, but actually they would love it if they did. So they kind of have to be introduced to it. And sometimes, like you say, like an anthology is good where maybe it's not that big a commitment for someone to write one story, and it's submitted and you get it out there. And I find when I go to conventions, I always am trying to promote the work of other writers because, anything that incites interest in the genre among people, whether it's of another writer, well, maybe they'll come back around to you eventually.
That's beautiful. It has been a pleasure and an honor speaking with you, brother.
Indeed. Likewise.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So could you just share with my audience, just remind them where they can find your work and how to reach out to you? Yes.
You can go to my website, freedomshammer.com, where you'll find book trailers on each of these books and links to where to buy them. You can also find them on Amazon.com, and the ebooks are there as well as on Smashwords, the ebooks, and in every format you can find them. If you go to my blog, the best and worst of horror, it's ForsythStories.com. You can find some of these crazy stories that I've been talking about.
Fantastic. And I put that all in the show notes too.
Very good.
Wow, it's been a pleasure, brother. So Now that was righteous. That was righteous. Hey, family, hope y'all enjoyed that episode of Johnathan Soul Sundays. You can find me here next Sunday. If you're on YouTube, just hit that little notification thing, hit subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Well, I feel it's weird saying that. Hit the subscribe button. God damn it. And you'll be notified when I drop another one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can follow me on Twitter, JOHNATHAN, SOUL on Twitter, on Tumblr, on SoundCloud. And if I made you smile, if I made you think, if I introduced you to some stuff you didn't know, show your appreciation by going over to Amazon.com and picking up my ebook, my sci-fi novel, Malcolm Mars. Malcolm like the prophet, Mars like the planet. 3 brothers take their families to Mars to escape the violence and racism of Earth. They build a new civilization over there. They get there in a homemade starship. And then, they're not really all that comfortable just sitting on their laurels. And so they try to use social media and different things to spark revolution back here on Earth. So definitely check it out. It's something you'll enjoy. 200 pages and change. $3 over on Amazon. It's in the Kindle format. So you really enjoy it. I love you guys. Hope all your dreams come true. Again, follow me on social media, JOHNATHAN SOUL on Twitter. Please support the people that I mentioned, and you'll be glad you did. We always think about, wow, I want somebody to do something. No, we're supposed to do something. All right, family. Peace and love. Talk to you later.